exactly what happened here. But I want to share my computer screen with you so I can show you where we believe this happened. So you talked about how it was just north of Providence. It's about a 9-minute drive from Providence and about an hour south of Boston. You also mentioned the ATF response, so I'll show you what they're saying about this. About 8 minutes ago, saying ATF agents are responding to a reported shooting in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, to assist state and local authorities. The public, they say, should avoid the area and follow the directions of Pawtucket police. Now, we did look at the Broadcastify log, and according to that, Lindsay, they are saying, again, this is according to Broadcastify, that there were 5 victims. Unclear at this point what their conditions are. I also believe that we do have some scene video to share with you of what it looks like outside that arena right now. What we were seeing a few moments ago, at least, was a heavy police presence there. There was also EMS responding. And I will note as well that police they were armed outside the arena as well. I will share with you the WPRI, which is a local affiliate there on the ground. They are reporting, Lindsay, that a suspect is dead after multiple people were shot. And this happened at Dennis M. Lynch Arena, again in Pawtucket, on Monday afternoon, about half an hour ago. This was confirmed to Target 12. They are saying right now that the arena is an indoor ice skating rink and that an employee at the Walgreens nearby told them that the people came into the pharmacy panicking. They said that there was a shooting there. The employee also said reportedly that they were told to close and to evacuate the building. They then phoned 911 and the people hid inside the store. Again, this is some reporting according to WPRI, which is a local affiliate, but we are now working here at CBS News to try to get you some answers on exactly what played out.
Okay, Chanel, flag us, keep us posted. Thank you. And Chanel was telling us a little bit more about the Dennis Lynch Ice Arena. According to visitrhodeisland.com, this is, as she mentioned, an indoor ice skating rink founded in 2000. Open year-round, they offer public skating as well as ice hockey leagues, figure and ice skating lessons, and learn to skate, learn to play programs. Let's bring in the head of our crime and policing unit, Anna Schechter, now. So, Anna, given that description of this ice rink, fair to say that there would have been adolescents at this time at the rink at 3:28 or
That's
earlier.
Right. Around 3 o'clock is when this played out, right at the end of school, potentially a hockey game for the high school team, maybe a practice. But we know that police were on the scene, EMTs on the scene, and what Chanel was just reporting from the Broadcastify, potentially 5 victims. We have not gotten that confirmed from law enforcement, so we're still working on this to determine the number of victims and the suspect, the condition of the suspect.
Right now we are watching chopper footage here from one of our affiliates. So if you guys see that it's kind of flickering in and out of black, that's why we're just sort of susceptible here to this feed. But right now it looks like we're seeing aerials at a nearby, I can't tell if it's the same facility or if the chopper flew a ways a little bit because I see a school bus there. Perhaps the school bus was parked in the parking lot there of that ice arena, or perhaps the chopper flew away a little ways.
Yeah, people are gathered, though, clearly gathering. I mean, you wouldn't see that number of people outside right now. So you can just imagine they probably walked everybody out who was inside that arena. I mean, that's a really tough thing to secure. You're inside, you're sitting ducks. There's probably just 1 or 2 exits. So they would have walked everybody out, hands up. Generally, that's how it works. Now you're seeing people gathered outside in the parking lot area.
All right, let's go ahead and take you now to live coverage of this story from our CBS station, CBS News Boston.
Been a search for fingerprints. Now it's video from the area and cell phone tower dumps so that you can see what kind of electronic devices are in the area. And if all that fails, as we see in the Guthrie case, then you resort to the possibility of DNA evidence to get a positive ID on who you're dealing with. So in this day and age, it's extremely important not only to identify and download cameras that are in the area, not only in the rink, which is critical, obviously, but outside. You want to see when this suspect came. You want to see how they got there. You want to see if they were there beforehand, scoping the area out. All of that can go to motive and the amount of planning, the intent of this type of an incident. So video from cell phone cameras from people and parents who were there is that sort of second stage that's really important. I can remember we sent state police out to Logan Airport to download camera video from individuals who had been at the marathon and were trying to leave the city a couple of days later. So all of that stuff is part of the protocol, and this is a heavy lift as far as the logistics around this investigation for the Providence and Pawtucket police.
And in terms of, the forensics and looking at the potential suspect here and what that person may or may not have had for a motive, I mean, how do the police go about gathering that information?
Well, motivation is a lot easier to work on when you have a suspect identified. So if the shooter is dead, they can start there. And they will first examine the relationship that the shooter had with the victims. Is this something that has to do with a game or a sporting event? Is it a domestic incident? Is it two individuals that are unknown to the individual who committed the shooting? All of that information will be categorized and will be part of the formula to determine the motivation for this particular incident.
And sometimes, I think, if we took a look at the MIT shooting and the Brown University shooting, the motive sometimes isn't clear at all, despite whatever evidence comes to light. And how frustrating is that for investigators to not understand or know why this happened?
It's extremely frustrating in two ways. One is that you don't technically need motivation to get a guilty verdict on a case, but it certainly helps the jury. So that's extremely important for the investigation. But on a human side, being able to understand what happened with an eye towards preventing it from happening in the future, I think is crucial. And I think that's why people pay so much attention to this and try to determine what caused someone to act in such an irrational way. But even in the case of the Brown incident, even though he left the tape recording explaining what he did and how he did it, it's still very difficult to determine exactly what would cause that type of dysfunction.
Now, Cheryl and Ed, I do want to make sure that for people who are just tuning in right now, if they're wondering what they're looking at, if they're wondering what we're talking about, because people are tuning in at all different times, we're following breaking news right now. This is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where people say multiple people have been hurt after a shooting at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. We do know the suspect is dead. We have two new tidbits to share with you right now. You're getting a look at the scene here, but we do know that we do have a statement from ATF. ATF agents are responding to this reported shooting here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. They are assisting state and local authorities, but the most important part of their message here is that the public should avoid this area. And we just heard Ed Davis talking about, trying to keep people who are not already at the scene, not involved, to keep them away. So ATF is asking the public to avoid the area and to please follow the directions of Pawtucket Police. But we also have received, there is a bulletin that families are receiving that are in the area. We actually have it here from one parent. I just want to share that with you so that you know what people in the immediate area are receiving. This is from a parent. So they are telling families that they're aware of this serious incident reported at Lynch Arena in Pawtucket. This is where the boys hockey team was playing. Information is still developing at this hour, and right now they are actively working with the event staff and the local authorities because they're doing everything they can to understand the situation as well alongside authorities that are on the scene. We can tell you here, this is what families are receiving in the area, that the students are secured in multiple locations, and they're still working to confirm the status and location of everyone. But they do have students that were in that arena secured in multiple locations. And the priority is the safety of all students and staff. They do understand that people are seeing this, and this is on their social media feeds, and this is popping up on their phone. People want information as soon as possible, but they are still working to verify details before any more is shared. So this right here, what you just heard me read here, is what parents and families are receiving in the area. So we just wanted to give you an idea of what people in the area are hearing, learning, seeing, because everyone right now is just looking for more information. And in an incident where there is just such a strong police presence, and as we're working to learn more.
And Ed, to bring you back in, the ATF says that they are assisting. What are they assisting with at this point in the investigation?
The ATF is extremely helpful in these investigations for a couple of reasons. One is that they can trace the serial numbers on the firearms very quickly. And one of the things you want to be able to determine at the outset here is to how the suspect got his hands on the gun. Is he a registered gun owner who owns his own guns? Is he somebody that doesn't have a license that was able to buy them from the street? Did someone provide him with the firearms? That's what I mean about peripheral prosecutions around there. So they'll be able to do that. The other thing that they can do is engage a database called NIBIN, which is the database for spent shell casings and ballistics information. And so they're able to track shell casings that were used in crimes around the country and compare one to the other. So did this gun pop up someplace else? Was it involved in another murder? The other thing I want to say is that the other critical issue that's being looked at right now, there are teams of officers being dispatched to the residents. As soon as they determine who this person was, the shooter was, it is crucial to get to that house and perform an immediate search of the house and the exterior. Because many times in situations like this is the tail end of an incident that happened someplace else. So it's really important that they secure that house, perform an exigent securing to make sure that there are no other victims involved in this, and then to wait for a search warrant so they can get in and exploit the devices and computer equipment that's inside that house.
And so many times, Ed, I know in your career, and we've seen how valuable the information is that police are able to get from cell phones or from computers or laptops. In some cases, it tells them a motive. Some cases, it tells them how long this planning has been going on, or if there were any other plans. I think we've seen some of that in the past. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, people's whole lives are on their devices nowadays. You have a cell phone that has a history of exactly who you've spoken to for the last 30 days or so. You have a search history on the internet. The people are so common that, if you have a question nowadays, you used to have to go to an encyclopedia. Now you just type it in. So it's almost like everything that comes to your mind is listed in your search history in some way, shape, or form. And that is extremely helpful to investigators who are trying to piece together a horrible incident like this. There are other, forms of really important evidence, especially in international terrorism cases, where international calls or texts or even information on Signal and some of these other more sophisticated devices can be caught and downloaded before they're deleted. So all of that information is extremely important in putting together motive and opportunity for a case like this.
And I think we've also seen in the past with some of these types of shootings that the gunman has posted their thoughts or their concerns or their grievances either on social media or on other platforms where it kind of was a signal that something was coming in the future. Can you talk a little bit about that and how common that might be?
Well, it's quite common, and actually there's a lot of crimes that are prevented because someone is telegraphing their intent through social media. It's a public forum that police oftentimes will monitor, and even more importantly, their friends and relatives will sometimes see a post that's troubling and notify authorities as a result of that. So and it doesn't have to be a case of them identifying the shooting incident that they're responsible for. It could be a slow process of someone being sometimes indoctrinated into a radical terrorist group, or just a degrading of their mental capacity over time when they get online and say things. You can almost see them going downhill. And if you hopefully are able to intervene, but it's such enormous amounts of data that has to be gone through that sometimes it's only hindsight that allows you to do that.
And in so many cases, talking to family or friends of whoever this suspect might be, and trying to find out what they knew or what they might have known about what was going on or what was in his mind or her mind before, what could have led up to this. How valuable is that type of information?
Well, it goes to motive. It also goes to, establishing responsibility for people who may have had some inkling that it was going to happen. There's a trial going on right now where a man provided a gun to his son, even though the son had talked about doing this type of thing and had an altar in his room in honor of someone who had done something like this before. That can result in criminal charges, and it's very important that a full review of everything that happened, what led up to it, is done. Sometimes it's just an explosion of emotion and insanity that causes somebody to do something like this, but other times there are tells that should be acted on, and we just hope that they are.
And, we've talked a lot about, in this moment, everyone wants answers right away about, why this happened, how this could happen. And I think that although we won't have answers immediately, we can say that technology is going to play in the favor of the investigators. Cheryl mentioned Live Barn. People have cell phones that are always rolling. So I think that in this case, getting answers and the why can never be too soon. But I do think technology is going to be helpful in this investigation.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's the first thing that we go to now if you include video. It not only does it give you real insight into what people are thinking, but it provides an enormous amount of evidence that can be helpful to the case.
And now, again, we do want to make sure for those just tuning in right now, you're getting aerials of the scene here. This is breaking news that we are staying on top of here on CBS News Boston and WBZ. This is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. Multiple people have been hurt after a shooting. We do know the suspect is dead, but we have our WBZ security analyst, Ed Davis, who has also reminded us that not only are there police on the scene here and authorities here, as well as ATF, but also authorities on the scene of that suspect that has not yet been identified, working to figure out what could have possibly been the motive of this horrible incident here. We did receive information from Coventry Public School Superintendent. They are sending information out to the parents, and they have also helped us to understand, what was happening during this shooting here. But we do also want to show you here what you're looking at. Still, there are multiple people on the scene, a very active scene, some who were at the rink when this was happening, some who were in the area nearby, just still at the very early stages of this investigation. Still more questions than answers right now, but local authorities and ATF working together to try to figure out what happened and why.
And Ed, where you have so many potential witnesses, gathering them all and bringing them somewhere where police and investigators can speak to them. I mean, how challenging is that to get that done quickly so that people don't disappear that might have information that could be valuable?
It's very difficult. It's a logistics issue. We've had cases where we actually had to engage a bus to pick up the number of witnesses to a crime, bring them all into police headquarters. And I can remember, going into the first floor and seeing a dozen or two people inside the cafeteria or sitting in the hallway outside the detective bureau, just waiting to be interviewed. So really difficult to do that. There will be crucial witnesses who are right on top of the action that you want to get into an office and download their information on paper as quickly as you can. There are other people that will be in the building that need to be talked to eventually. And so detectives and supervisors at the scene will be making determinations. But it's crucial that they identify everyone who was there to begin with, and then sort of shepherd the most important witnesses in to document, sometimes do a drawing of the suspect, sometimes go through photographs of potential suspects. In this particular case, those things won't be necessary because it seems like the suspect has expired. But all of that stuff is standard procedure, and it is complicated, especially the larger the venue that you're in.
And at the same time, they're going to the suspect's home and going through whatever might be going on there, whatever other evidence may be there. In addition to that, I'm assuming that they would probably need to get warrants at some point for some other things as well. So this is not an easy investigation by any means in terms of quickly coming to some real conclusions.
No question. They'll be applying for search warrants for the means of transportation, whether it's a case where the individual drove himself to the scene or use some other form of transportation. They're going to identify that vehicle, and they're going to stop that vehicle, and they're going to search it, possibly bring it into the police department for a real forensic review. And I mentioned the residence of the individual and any other place that they are able to put a finger on that they know might have some relevance to the overall situation.
And Ed and Cheryl, you both made mention of, making sure that the witnesses that they need to speak to are not leaving the scene. And I think the number one here, even though we all have a lot of questions right now, but the number one here that you and Cheryl both talked about is the preservation process. That's going to be paramount right now, even with so much going on, even with so much uncertainty and chaos at this point. It's going to be about preserving as much of the scene, both here at the rink, but also at the suspect's home, to be able to put the pieces together so that eventually we can learn what led up to this.
No question. That's going to be crucial. There's a lot of logistics involved. There's a lot of really hard detective work that has to be done, and prosecutorial planning and preparation that needs to be done. So it's a team approach. I mean, we're used to doing cases like this, but one thing I want to bring up is there are homicides that happen that might have as many victims as this one. But an incident like this, because of where it happened, because children are involved, bring an enormous amount of media scrutiny and public interest. And that puts a different level of pressure on the investigators that can be really difficult to manage. So, you have to spend a part of your time thinking about messaging and what can be put out and how it should be put out, and making sure that you're keeping everybody informed on a case of such great interest.
And I do just want to break in here. My producer just telling me that our sister station in Rhode Island now confirming one victim has died in this shooting. One victim has died. 4 people remain in the hospital at this hour, something we will continue to stay on top of in terms of learning more about their condition. But 1 victim is dead. 4 people are in the hospital right now. And again, if you're just tuning in, the suspect involved in this shooting is dead as well.
I know, and Ed, this is kind of, we see these scenes over and over again, and it gets very frustrating, I'm sure, for the police and for, the folks that end up getting involved in these kinds of things, that, what could happen or what could prevent anything like this from happening in the future. And I think you alluded to some of that, sometimes people post things on social media or on sites where the police can get a handle on it before something happens, and how crucial that might be, or friends or family who know that someone's struggling with some mental health issues.
Right. The old adage, see something, say something, applies so importantly in today's society. There's a coming together of very serious mental health issues among a larger portion of the population, and the easy availability of weapons that is creating an environment where these things can happen. So I think the one thing I want to stress in that regard, Cheryl, is a very good question. There are people that can help you. Don't get the impression that if you call the police, you're sending your relative or friend to prison for the rest of his life. That only happens if they follow through on it. If there's a way to identify this type of threat and to mitigate it before it happens, there's an enormous amount of resources out there that can be provided to the individual, and sometimes they don't even know that. They find themselves in a dark corner, thinking that there's no other way out except to commit violence. And it's extremely important for people who understand to say something about it and to get as much help as possible.
I know, and that's, I think, a big challenge for police departments, to try to get that message out where people would trust them to come to them with problems that their child might have, or noticing things that they're concerned about, or even schools noticing things that that they may be concerned about in terms of threats or anything else. And in this situation, we don't know about any of that happening here, but it's certainly a concern in any of these types of incidents.
No question. And you just hope that that wasn't the case, because after an incident like this, if someone had that knowledge beforehand, they have to live with themselves now, which is a horrible burden to carry.
Now, at this hour, we're also just learning, too, something that can help explain why there was such a large group of people there. Our sister station, WPRI, here in Rhode Island, reporting that at 2 p.m. there was a hockey game that was set to happen between Coventry and Blackstone Valley schools scheduled for that time. So this would also explain, you have seen aerials here on CBS News Boston. You have seen that there was a significant crowd there, and it seems that the hockey game planned between Coventry and Blackstone Valley schools could also be the reason why there was such a large crowd now asking questions, wondering what's happening and what's going on, because they're thinking they're coming to support the kids, and then something unthinkable happens.
I think that, yeah, you're right, Courtney. I think that the schedule showed that there was a game scheduled for 2 o'clock this afternoon. As to whether or not that had anything to do with the shooting, or what may or may not have been involved with that, we still don't know. We're still looking for some answers there. And also on the injuries, how serious they might be. We still have not heard on the folks that were injured and what their conditions might be. But we do know, as you pointed out, that our sister station is reporting that the gunman is dead, and at least one of the victims has now died as well. And Ed, while police are doing all of this, and putting together all of this information, they're trying to get this information out and plan a news conference so that they can let people know what's happening, and also let the families know. And how challenging is it to try to get all of the pieces together so that you're able to provide some information, but at the same time that you're involved in what really is a very active scene?
Right. You can't understate the difficulty of managing an event like this. They talk about the fog of war, which is very real. And I was with NYPD detectives just a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the difficulty in the first reports coming from the scene. They're almost always wrong. So if you got out ahead of yourself before you are positive about what you're dealing with, and I learned over the years the best way to do that is to actually be at the scene and to see it with your own eyes before you go public with anything. It can backfire on you. The last thing, it's probably more preferable to provide small amounts of information until you're certain than it is to be completely transparent and make mistakes. And that's the balancing act that the police officials, the public relations people from the cities, and the prosecutors have to play in every one of these incidents.
And as you said, there's a lot of people involved. It's not just the police, it's the district attorney's office, it's multiple police agencies. And sometimes the information that you initially get turns out to be not completely accurate or not completely full of all the facts and evidence that you need to be able to come out and tell people what's going on. But there's a lot of frustration from people that want to know. And this day and age, you watch a television show and they've solved the whole crime in less than 30 minutes or less than 60 minutes, and that just doesn't normally happen in a regular real life situation.
Right, and I think you're seeing this in cases all over the country where, unlike television, where somebody says, pull up that camera and get that video, it doesn't work like that. It takes shoe leather to access these systems to download the information, to bring it into technicians on the police department, and then to piece it all together. And you can get video from a camera that's got the wrong timestamp on it, and it doesn't coincide with the next camera that you're working on, and you really have to sort through all that before you say, we know what happened. And those are the kind of little things that people don't understand because of this false narrative that's being put out there by TV shows that this is all automated. It's not.
Right, we've been talking about that the cameras and, whatever camera that might be inside the rink and whatever cameras anybody else have or any businesses have, they're not on a system that police can just go access. I mean, unlike in the UK where they can pull up cameras and follow someone when a crime happens with all of the video evidence really in one place, we don't have that here.
Right. I've worked in London. I've had a chance to see their incredible investment in cameras that come back to central locations that are monitored 24/7. And almost all of their crime hotspots are fully under surveillance all the time. That's not something that we've embraced here in the United States, and I certainly understand that. But over the years, private cameras have been put up almost everywhere. So the ubiquity of the camera systems in the United States can end up with the same solution.
Now, Ed, I want to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We do have WBZ's Louisa Moeller live now. She just arrived on the scene. You've seen aerials, you've heard from Ed, and now we want to take you directly onto the scene. Louisa.
Hey, Courtney, that's right. We literally pulled up here moments ago, so I'm going to step out of the way so you and I can take a peek at what this already very large investigation looks like. You can see this is the Dennis M. Lynch ice skating arena in Pawtucket. If you look at the parking lot here, you can see, of course, there's already the yellow caution crime scene tape up around the arena. We see multiple police departments. Pawtucket police are here. Rhode Island State Police are here. We recently learned that Providence police are monitoring the situation. We have some reporting that Massachusetts State Police are also monitoring the situation, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms will be assisting local police. At this point, the details on the ground are few. We're hearing there might be a press conference sometime in the next hour. The media is being asked to move to a spot that's only about 200 feet from here, a parking lot where we will potentially get a briefing. I can say that the general tenor here is not chaos at this point. It seems like they are fully in investigation mode. We can see some detectives walking around with cameras. We can see some plainclothes detectives, but it definitely doesn't seem like they are at a time right now where they are triaging the situation. It seems like they are fully investigating what's going on. Of course, you've been reporting over and over again. What we know is that, this is a shooting with multiple people injured. Our sister station in Rhode Island.
Okay, everybody, we have been listening to live coverage from CBS News Boston about this reported mass shooting at a local hockey rink in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. This is just north of Providence, and CBS News Boston is reporting that one person is dead, another 4 hospitalized. We're working on confirming exact numbers here and figuring out exactly where the shooter is as well, if that person has been neutralized. We know that, according to WBZ, a hockey team was playing at the time. There was a 2 p.m. hockey game scheduled there, so there were a lot of people there at the time. We also know the governor has responded, saying that he is actively monitoring the situation and that he has spoken to the Pawtucket mayor and working with local law enforcement. We also know ATF agents are responding. Now, Anna Schechter and Chanel Call are following the story. They're going to have much more at the top of the hour on CBS News 24/7. Here is Sarah Donchi in San Francisco.
Welcome in. I'm Sarah Donchi. We start with breaking news of a shooting at an indoor hockey rink during a boys hockey game in Rhode Island. The shooting happened at the Dennis M. Lynch Arena in Pawtucket, Rhode Island this afternoon. We are still learning a lot here. We don't have information or on confirmation of how many people may have been shot. or if there are any fatalities confirmed as of right now. CBS Boston station WBZ is reporting that the suspect is dead. ATF agents are also responding to the scene to assist local and state law enforcement, a major police presence right now. Our partners over in Boston are following the developments live right now.
We continue to follow breaking news in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where police say multiple people have been hurt after a shooting at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. This is an indoor skating rink. We do know right now that the suspect is dead. We want to give you a look here on the map so we can give you a better idea of where this is happening on Andrew D. Furland Way. Our sister station reporting that there's actually an employee at the Walgreens nearby where children came into the pharmacy in a panic saying that there was a shooting. The employee said that they were told to close and evacuate that building. They called 911 and the children hid in the store. We do have crews on the way to the scene, and as we wait for those crews to arrive, we do want to bring in WBZ security analyst Ed Davis now to help to give us some context of this situation as we continue to wait for our crews to arrive on the ground. Ed Davis, thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Good afternoon. It's a chaotic time when something like this happens. Thank you very much.
Now, I know, this is also this is a holiday. This is a day that kids have off of school today, which makes it even scarier for parents to be hearing this news here. This was an indoor skating arena where children and everyone are coming to have a good time, and then something like this happens. We do at least know right now, Ed, that the suspect is dead. Can you talk to us about the rapidness of this response here by police and law enforcement to this incident?
Sure. So an incident like this at a hockey rink, and I've spent a lot of my life at hockey rinks with my children, it's almost akin to a school shooting in that there's a bunch of young people there. Terrible incident to have them go through. So the police responsibility is to secure the scene, take out the shooter, and then to provide aid, medical aid and evacuation to the children, but most importantly, anybody who has been injured. If the suspect has passed, then they can concentrate their time on first aid. They can concentrate their time on life-saving procedures and getting people to the hospital as quickly as possible. So that's what's going on now. I've been told there's a command post set up in that area, which is standard police procedure to coordinate the massive resources that are usually sent to a situation like this. But the first few minutes are really crucial. What those officers do when they first get there can make the difference between life and death.
And can we talk about how important it was? You have that employee in that nearby Walgreens, because there are a few things here around this arena. I'm looking at a map, but the importance of the employee calling 911 every minute counts, especially in a situation like this. But the response of the employee at that nearby Walgreens was so important in terms of police being able to get out there as soon as possible and secure the area and kind of assess what's going on.
Right. It is crucial that anyone, no matter how close they are to the incident, if they get word of something like this happening, to notify the police immediately. But I think it's also notable that the store had procedures in place to lock down and to provide assistance to the witnesses or potential victims who came into the store.
All right, so our partners in Boston still monitoring this developing situation in Rhode Island where there's been a shooting during a boys hockey game at an ice rink there. To just get a better picture of what might be happening behind the scenes right now, let's go to the senior coordinating producer for CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit, Anna Schechter. Please explain, Anna, if you can. I know that there are a lot of law enforcement there. We saw state police, we saw local police. We're also hearing about federal agents. We're hearing about the ATF in particular. I'm wondering if you could explain what their role might be as they try to piece things together. And also, obviously, Anna, this is a time where there have been a lot of reports of tension between federal law enforcement and local law enforcement in some jurisdictions. Can you explain how that might factor in and what they need to do to coordinate right now?
Sure. Well, in and around Rhode Island, there has been historically a really strong working relationship between locals and federal. So you noted that it was the ATF. They are going to be working on that weapon and tracing back how the shooter obtained that weapon. That's going to be important in building out sort of a profile and piecing together what happened and what led to this, because there are going to be a lot of questions. How did this happen? How did this individual get inside a hockey arena, which is a closed area? There might be just a couple of exits with a loaded firearm. This was a high school game. Generally, that should not be happening. You should not have an individual able to just walk right in with a loaded firearm. So you talked about the enormous police presence. You are seeing dozens and dozens of officials there on the scene. Now, you would have had emergency first responders immediately come and triage the victims, and you would have police file all the survivors out, hands up, to make sure that none of them are working with or potentially the suspect. So you would generally march them out single file. They want to keep track of everybody who's coming out of that hockey rink, hands up. Sometimes they'll ask them to lift their shirts up just to make sure that no one is armed. And once you clear that out, the triaging of those injured, or unfortunately, if someone has died, that continues. All of those people get taken to local area hospitals, and the investigative process is already underway. They're going to want to immediately get a warrant for the home, the electronic devices of the suspect, and get into those right away.
You know, Anna, as we're talking to you, we were watching that shot, and it sounds like authorities are preparing to at least brief the public in the next hour, perhaps, about what is going on there. There are a lot of questions, Anna, about the people who were injured in this. We are going to be asking about that the second that we can. Our hearts and our thoughts are with them. You know, we heard our affiliate there, WPRI, report that the suspect is dead, Anna. And obviously you mentioned that that's the primary focus, is neutralizing the threat, making sure that person is removed, nobody else gets hurt. Now, of course, if the suspect is dead, how might investigators use other ways? Obviously, they can't interview this person. What clues might they look for to kind of figure out? Of course, anytime there's a shooting like this, everyone wants to know why, what motivated this. What might they look for? Might the ATF look for? Might local and state police look for to try and provide those answers to the public and any victims?
It's a great question. They're going to be interviewing family members, roommates, co-workers, anyone who knew this person. And of course, the digital forensics are an important part of this, because what they need to do is they need to determine if anyone aided this individual in carrying out this shooting, because prosecutors are going to want to bring charges if someone did help, or a group of people. So they need to do that. That is an important part of the investigative process that is underway right now. So they need a warrant. They're going to get that laptop or phone. Were they texting anyone about this? Did they get advice about how to obtain the weapon or how to carry out that shooting? That information is going to be obtained, and why it's in case someone else needs to be charged. Now, if the shooter is deceased, then sometimes there can be less motivation in building a case for a potential prosecution. But we have seen in previous cases, sometimes we've seen even parents held accountable for providing a weapon to a child who was demonstrating red flags. There were red flags, and they got that weapon anyway. In fact, just today, the father of the Appalachia High School shooter down in Georgia, he is standing trial there, and so he was charged because he allowed his son, despite multiple red flags over the course of many months that there was a serious mental health issue, he provided his son with a weapon. So that can play into what we're going to see in the coming days and weeks if we do find that somebody aided this individual.
All right, Anna Schechter, thank you as always for your insight and analysis. And just to let our viewers know, we are continuing to follow updates here and expecting potentially a news conference moments away in Rhode Island. We'll bring that to you once we get it. For now, breaking news out of Arizona, where the Pima County Sheriff releases a new statement on the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping. This comes as investigators are looking at a black glove found near Nancy Guthrie's home. The FBI says the glove does seem to match the pair worn by the suspect in this now widely seen ring in this doorbell camera video, and it contains DNA evidence. CBS News reporter Andres Gutierrez live for us in Tucson. Andres, tell us about this new statement from the sheriff.
Well, Sarah, just moments before we came on the air, the Pima County Sheriff says that the Guthrie family has been ruled out as possible suspects in this case and shared a statement, and I'll read it to you. Quote, "To be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it's cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I'm begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism, which is what we here at CBS News have been striving to do." All of this comes as investigators are using forensics to close in on a suspect. The FBI says that investigators recovered 16 gloves from the neighborhood where Nancy Guthrie lives. One of them matches the one that is seen on that doorbell camera video that you mentioned. We're told that investigators have developed a male DNA profile from that glove, and they have sent it over to the FBI, who are about to enter it into CODIS, and that is the national database for the DNA that the FBI has. If there is a match, it could help them narrow down a name associated with this suspect. But the glove is just one part of a bigger piece of the puzzle. The Pima County Sheriff's Department also saying to CBS News that investigators now believe that the suspect's backpack, his face mask, as well as the clothing were bought at Walmart. We already knew that this particular 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack is the one that the suspect ended up wearing in that video. This particular one, the Ozark Trail brand, is the private label